It was supposed to be just another ordinary flight. Passengers moved through the airport with their luggage, waiting to board. Some eager, some tired, all caught in the rhythm of international travel. The cabin crew greeted each traveler, directing them to their seats. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary that day. Among the many passengers was a man dressed in simple military fatigues. He carried himself quietly, without a trace of arrogance or demand for attention. To the flight attendants, and most of the people around him, he looked like any other soldier, perhaps traveling on official duty or heading home. He didn't stand out, and that was exactly how he wanted it. But this man was not just another soldier. His name was Ibrahim Traoré, the President of Burkina Faso, one of the youngest leaders in the entire world. At only 34 years old, he had taken on the responsibility of leading a nation, carrying the hopes of millions of people on his shoulders. And yet here he was, boarding a commercial flight like anyone else, without the pomp, without the flashing cameras, without the army of security that many world leaders surround themselves with. As he quietly took his seat, a flight attendant walked over. She was efficient, professional, but also a bit sharp in tone. Looking at the man in fatigues, she assumed he was in the wrong place. With a touch of irritation, she told him, "Sir, this section is not for you. Please move." The words hung in the air. Some passengers nearby turned to look. A few exchanged curious glances. To many, it seemed like a routine correction from a staff member who was just doing her job. But to those who recognized him, it was shocking. Here was the president of a nation being spoken to like an ordinary traveler, even being disrespected. And how did Ibrahim Traoré respond? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't flash his identity. He didn't demand to be treated differently. Instead, he stayed calm. He gave a polite smile and remained seated. There was no anger in his expression, no attempt to show power, just humility. Moments later, another passenger who had been observing the scene leaned in and whispered to the attendant, "Do you know who that is? That's President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso." The flight attendant froze. Her eyes widened as realization struck. She had just scolded the head of state, a man who had risen to power during one of the most difficult moments in his country's history, a man who had stood in defiance against some of the most powerful nations on earth. And yet, he had shown her nothing but patience and respect. Embarrassment flushed across her face. She quickly adjusted her tone, offering apologies, now realizing the weight of her mistake. But Traoré, still calm, only nodded. He wasn't offended. To him, respect wasn't something that should be demanded through titles, but something that should be earned through actions. This story spread far and wide, not just because of the mistake, but because of the lesson hidden in it. In that single interaction, people saw the character of Ibrahim Traoré. Unlike many leaders who build walls around themselves, separating from ordinary citizens, he showed that real strength lies in humility.
But to truly understand the weight of this story, one must understand who Ibrahim Traoré is and why he is such a remarkable figure in modern Africa. Born in 1988 in Burkina Faso, Traoré grew up in a country plagued with instability, poverty, and foreign influence. He joined the military, serving with discipline and courage. Over the years, he witnessed his people's struggles, the lack of opportunities, the corruption in leadership, and the heavy hand of external powers dictating the future of his homeland. By 2022, The frustration of the people had reached a breaking point. Burkina Faso, rich in resources like gold, remained poor, its wealth flowing outward, while its citizens were left with little. When the government failed to protect the people from terrorism and internal chaos, young officers like Traoré decided enough was enough. In a bold move, he led a coup, removing the old leadership and taking charge. At only 34 years old, he became president, the youngest head of state in the world. But unlike the image of a dictator that some tried to paint, Traoré projected a different vision. He spoke about sovereignty, about Africans taking control of their own resources, their own destiny, without being dictated to by foreign powers. He became a symbol of resistance and pride, not only in Burkina Faso, but across Africa. And yet, despite his powerful position, he lived simply. He didn't parade around with extravagance. He didn't crave the luxurious treatment that many leaders demand. He was, and remains, a man of the people.
That's why the story on the plane resonates so deeply. Imagine a leader who could easily command fear and demand respect, instead choosing silence and humility in the face of disrespect. That humility didn't make him weaker, it made him stronger. It revealed his understanding that respect imposed by force is temporary, but respect earned through character lasts forever. The incident with the flight attendant became a lesson, not just about Ibrahim Traoré, but about life itself. Too often we judge people by appearances, the clothes they wear, the seats they occupy, the way they present themselves. We assume importance only belongs to those with obvious signs of wealth or power. But reality is far different. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room looks the most ordinary. And sometimes the ones who appear ordinary are carrying the weight of nations. As the flight continued, the atmosphere shifted. Passengers whispered among themselves, many now looking at Traoré with newfound respect. The flight attendant, still shaken, did her best to carry on, though the memory of her mistake would remain. For her, it was a moment of embarrassment, but for the rest of us, it became a story of leadership. Leadership is not about titles. It's not about demanding to be treated as special. It's about humility, patience, and the ability to inspire respect through actions. Traoré's calm response in that moment echoed louder than any speech could. And perhaps the greatest lesson here is one for all of us. Respect everyone, no matter how ordinary they may seem, because you never truly know who they are, what battles they have fought, or what responsibility they carry. For Africa, Ibrahim Traoré is not just a president, he is a symbol of resistance, of sovereignty, and of dignity. And for the world, his actions serve as a reminder. True power doesn't need to shout. True power speaks through silence, through humility, and through the way one treats others. So the next time you sit beside a stranger on a bus, a train, or a plane, remember this story. Because hidden behind an ordinary face may be someone extraordinary. And respect freely given may be the greatest gift you can offer. Respect everyone, for respect costs nothing, but its value is beyond measure.